S. All right, good.
What's going on, guys? Lord Addict here. We got some good stuff for you guys, man. The Lords did go out there and we played Redfall. I let Cog go give a little brief summary about the event.
Yeah, man. Shout out to our good friends at Bethesda and Arcane Austin. Yeah, we had a good time. I had a chance to take a look at Redfall behind the scenes, single player version of it. They were very key to stress that. Shout out to Harvey, and the team. And yeah, I guess we're gonna break this thing down. So I have my brethren with me,
Yeah.
like old school. And yeah, man, we got a chance to go behind the scenes, and we're gonna talk about that with the realm.
Yeah, first off, I want to break down, the conditions of we did this. Unfortunately, Lord Cognito and Lord Soft picked the same character, so we only give you the reference of one character. That's how you know that none of this was really thought of, because for some reason they both used the same character.
Too excited.
This is who we gravitated to.
The funny part is before it happened, I'm sitting there, I'm getting to my station, they got everything set up, and I'm just like, all right. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm taking Layla, I'm gonna see, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did think about it, Attic. I was like, I'm looking up, I'm like, yo, at least find something. Yo, so we don't take the same character, but I couldn't find him. No, to find out that he's literally across from me, I just couldn't see.
I was just on the other side of him. But the thing is, you know what it is, that there was three seats on every side. Like every station had sort of like three seats.
Mm-hmm.
So Maddie sat down, Cog sat down. When I went for that last seat, somebody already grabbed it. So I'm like, damn, all right, I'm gonna go around to the other side.
That's why I couldn't find you. I was like,
yeah.
damn.
So then somebody snatched that seat that was right next to you, Cog. So I was like, damn, okay. So yeah, we wound up taking the same character, but
we give different perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how we're gonna do this? We've never done nothing like this. This is one of our very first like previews to this extent. What we're gonna do is I didn't play it, they did, but I do have a decent set of knowledge when it comes to arcade games. So, I got a little bit of questions for you guys. We're going to go over one question at a time. First question I really want to ask you is, since you guys have had your preview with just the single player, let me say that we only played the single player of Redfall. There was no co-op features in this particular time when they were playing the build. They wanted to really emphasize, look, you can play this game as a single player and as a co-op feature. We'll go into that. We have actual question on that, but I want you guys to explain to the realm what type of game Redfall is, because I know that we might know what Redfall is, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that gravitate in and out of the gaming sphere that don't really put their ear to the ground like we do. We'll start with Solve. What Redfall?
Yeah, so Redfall is like you said, a single or multiplayer co-op game, where you're basically it's PvE, right? And you're put into this town of Redfall, which is kind of like this sort of vampire apocalypse has happened in this world, and it's on you with the four specific characters that you have access to sort of quell the vampire, the sort of vampire insurrection that has happened there. And yeah, and it's basically a PvE, either single player or multiplayer experience that has obviously the touches of what Arcane is, right? So you have each character has special powers that you can, it's a skill tree that you can sort of improve upon and evolve throughout the game, and the gunplay, right? And then the thing about it is that Arcane isn't usually known for their gunplay. Deathloop was really one of their first games that they really, really focused on gunplay, and this would be the second one. So it's interesting that it's a shooter, but it also has a lot of the elements that you expect from Arcane.
How do you feel about it, Cog? Coming from the background that you may have dabbled a little bit. I know you played a little bit of Deathloop, but you haven't really jumped in head first to an arcade game. How did you feel playing this? How would you describe Redfall?
Yeah, open world cooperative campaign. Obviously, you played the single player version of mode. Like you said, Attic, I am not the arcade guy per se. I'm kind of new to these games, and for me, I think one of the things that kind of stood out initially when we got there is before we got a chance to play in the session. Harvey Smith and the team, they kind of were talking about what Redfall is and the fact that the single player campaign, in their opinion, kind of represents what the Arcane purist experience would be, what I'm saying? Which is, kind of this immersive world with vampires and stuff like that, and how you can kind of interact with the world. I think for me, the main thing was that, as far as how I felt about it, like, I felt fun. I felt like, what I'm playing felt fun. I know we're gonna get into details with more with the questions, but I think that was my main thing. And I think they were very clear to make a separation that we are not Left 4 Dead. You know what I'm saying? Like we are not. We are telling a single player and a cooperative story, and we just wanted to let you know that there's a distinction between both. So yeah, that's just my initial feel. I thought it was interesting that they told us that.
So, I'm glad that you brought that up when it comes to, the developers, really coming out saying what to not compare this game to. Is there a game that you've played in the past that you feel like you could compare this game to remotely? Or do you think it's so unique that there's not a game you can compare it to? We'll start with Saul.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I compared it to in some ways was kind of Overwatch, because it does feel like it is a PvE sort of hero shooter where each of the characters has like 3 special moves that kind of fall into the realm of what you expect from arcane games. Like if you think about Corvo and the type of movesets he had in Dishonored, it's like that. But then you had the shooting aspect of it. So to me, it kind of felt like it was Overwatch, but in a PvE setting with story and narrative sort of elements. Kind of even, I haven't played a lot of Destiny, but you guys do a lot of PvE stuff in Destiny where, each of your characters, it's a little bit different, right? Build wise and stuff like that. But it is that sort of thing where you have specific powers that are useful in specific ways in combat. And I think that's what I sort of compare it to. So from a multiplayer perspective, definitely that. From a single player perspective, and we'll get into it, it feels like it is the Arcane experience with more focus on gunplay, and less of a focus on the powers, which for me is a little bit disappointing because I just feel like the number of powers each character has is limiting. Mm-hmm. But overall, it is that experience. So yeah, it's a little bit of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like jumping off of what Saul was saying, I think that, for me as a Destiny player, there was some things that I felt intrinsically I gravitated towards. Okay, left bumper was like my primary power. In case of Layla, who I took, it was kind of like this, Titanfall, suck the bullets up, reflect them back kind of power that she had. And then right bumper was like this lift, and you jump into the air and you can kind of elevate. And then both bumpers were like the super bumper where she like brought her boyfriend out and he's tearing stuff up. It was crazy on that in that respect. So the sensibilities it would definitely, you had the abilities, but I definitely felt it was a lot of gunplay, and the fact that they wanted to, again, just for transparency, they had us we started not at the beginning of the game. The demo that we played was kind of like in the middle of the game. They gave us kind of like advanced weapons and things of that nature. So I just thought that the feel, I can't compare it to anything specifically, only because the open world aspect of it, right? And the fact that, it is truly an open world. And we'll get into more details with the questions later.
A fair, statement would be, it's hard to compare this game because it was like Apex Legends. Like Apex Legends was so different, but so like other games, but you couldn't compare it to other games, but it had features from other games.
Exactly. It had features.
It's like putting the hero mechanics into an arcade game.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, when I said Overwatch, I meant like a PvE version of Overwatch, not PvP, but definitely that.
Yeah, and I think to add on, the distinction for me is that even though, like I said, Destiny, Overwatch, and all other games, a lot of that is a hub world, right? And a hub, and then you have to go transport. This is there is an open world. Some places you can go inside houses and things of that nature. So that part is where the separation for me is from the others.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing I want to really go into is I feel like Arcane's always done a well job on character development. From Corvo to Colt, they've done a really good job at explaining these characters and building as a character through the game. Now, when it comes to Redfall, I know you guys only played with the same character, but did you feel like going into there that they're going to continue this trend in Redfall? We'll start with Cognito.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the characters had a lot of personality. You know what I mean? I felt like, Layla, who obviously we both took. I was drawn to the fro, man. I had to get the fro.
I had to see
what she was doing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
I think that proves even more that she's the most unique character, like visually and you know, personality wise, because that's the one people are drawn to the moment they see that
Yeah,
character.
absolutely right about that because she is the other characters do feel kind of like archetypes or whatever.
Hmm.
She is like, and we discussed this
Yeah.
right there, where she is kind of the reason for why the whole
Yes.
Redfall event happens. Like she
Yes.
is basically the patient zero that
Mhm.
they experimented on with some sort of blood thing, and from that sort of the vampires were born, or actually whatever happened with her blood was used by someone else to sort of begin the experiments that
Some form of
birthed the
mad scientist
vampires.
moment.
Exactly, exactly. So she is the thing is out of that experimentation, she comes out of it with telekinetic powers, and that's what gives her the lift and the sort of the sort of what do you call it, the shield that she's able to throw stuff back and things like that. So yeah, she is the most interesting character, and I have a feeling story wise she's going to be super integral to the overall story of it too.
Yeah, so you know, talking to you, Saul, because you've played the Redfall games, you've played the Arcane games, you've played the
Mhm.
Dishonored, the Praise, obviously Deathloop. I don't think you was a big fan of that, but you know what we'll go into with you is the atmosphere of the game. Like I think that they've done not only character development wise, I would say atmosphere above all, even
Yeah,
gameplay to a certain degree. They've always made all the worlds that they've made feel very alive. And what I want
yeah.
to ask you is, off of playing the little bit you played in Redfall, do you feel like they're going to continue that? You know, that I was. It's kind of like in a living world. Like
Hmm.
it's like it got its own pulse. The stuff they do in Dishonored, where Corvo goes to these characters, and I really enjoyed that. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of Arcane fans. Do you think they're going to continue that trend with Redfall?
I mean, just in the little bit that we played, I think they've already, knocked that out of the park. That is one of apart from the gameplay stuff, that's the aspect of arcane games that are really exciting to me. The world building, the feeling that this world is sort of lived in, and the environmental storytelling where they're never really telling you what happened. You can walk out and into the world and sort of figure it out on your own. And they do things like, NPCs will talk to you and give you little stories. They'll give you little missions to go on. You'll walk into a place where you'll see like blood all over the place and dead bodies, and you'll find a note, and it'll give you an idea of what happened there. Yeah, all of that is in there in the same way, in the way that you expect from any arcane game, that you'd expect from a Dishonored or a Prey or a Deathloop. All of that stuff is in there, and that's one of the first things that I went to look for. Like
Hmm.
when I started playing, I the way I play these games is that I play them slowly and meticulously. I like to go in and sort of try to break the world and see what I can do and get away with. But I do like talking to the NPCs and just looking at the environment and just seeing the world that they've crafted. If I get a sense of place and time when I look at that world. And I have to say they really knocked it out of the park. There's one specific instance. One of the first places that I visited was the boat docks.
Hmm.
And I went to the boat docks, and when I get there, there's literally so basically whatever happened in Redfall, the vampire event, basically everyone is stuck in Redfall. They can't get out of Redfall. So one of the things that is physically blocking people from leaving is that whatever this vampire apocalypse caused the ocean to turn up on itself, and it's literally frozen in time. So at the boat docks, you see this wall of water frozen in time with boats cracked in half in the middle of it. All kinds. It's a beautiful scene. When I saw it, I was talking to Maddie about it. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this thing that I saw." And he's like, "What? What was that?" I was like, "The boat docks."
Hmm.
It's something he didn't see at all in his playthrough,
Hmm.
and it was this thing. I was like, "Okay." The idea of environmental storytelling, the place and time stuff, the thing that makes the place feel alive, that is super alive and well in this game. And it's extra impressive because in other arcane games, though the environments are smaller, right? They're more created, they're more sort of curated. This is an open world. So you have to try to maintain that level of interest in terms of world building across a bigger landscape. And so far, what I've seen, they've done a fantastic job of it. Really excited about that.
So Cog, I know that you haven't really played too many of their games to really compare the atmosphere to other games, but what I like about talking to you about is like you're coming in with like a clean slate. Like you coming in there with not really biased, because I'll be real, me and Saul, we're biased.
Super biased.
Yeah, like what I wanted to hear from you is, did you feel like off, I think it was like you said like an hour and a half of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like it was an atmospheric kind of game? Did you feel like you were drawn to it? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, good question. I definitely felt drawn to it. I mean, you start off kind of like we start off in like a firehouse kind of station. You can tell this is where they're congregating. There's obviously some survivors in there. You go out. First thing I want to give a credit to is the art style. At first, when I saw Redfall initially in first looks, I wasn't too sure about how graphically I would like it, to be honest. And one thing is I really started to appreciate the art style actually playing it. And I was like, oh, no, this looks cool. There was like a picture of like four. I was walking through the fire department. There was a picture of like four distinct, I guess, captains that were like, they used to run the place. So I don't know if they died or if they're still alive. But I see NPCs looking at them. So I stood up there and looked at them. I was like, okay, what's going on? And then I went out into the world. Solve went one direction. I went another way. And then the first thing I noticed was just like, okay, you could tell something has happened in this town. This is serious effects. I saw cultists kind of scouting, seeing what's going on. The first things that I noticed was these certain areas that had like a blue mist around certain areas, right? Certain areas, when you walk around the map, you saw a red mist, and the blue mist kind of was very intriguing. Like I went into it to see what's going on, and in there, whoever's in there, the vampires are empowered. They are buffed. And I just thought it was cool when I walked in. It was like, oh, you coming to sacrifice yourself to me today, huh? And I was like, oh.
Talking smack.
Yeah, vampire talking mad strong. So I was like, oh, I like this. You know what I'm saying? So it was dope. And then, Attic, you would appreciate this. The red mist, it reminded me of kind of like that State of Decay blood pack kind of energy. But like, different, more stress, because the minute you jump into it, you are physically getting hurt. And I was just like, yo, I can't be in here. And I guess you got to find like a blood pack thing and maybe get a UV light. We found out after how I was supposed to deal with that. But during, I was just like, yo, this is crazy. So to what Saul was saying, the thing for me when I really felt the atmosphere was, I'm looking around, I'm seeing the houses, and not every house you go to, but there was a couple. I'm like, okay, that window's open on the second floor. I used Layla, got up on the lift, got to the top, crawled in, and I went inside. And I was kind of doing like a breach and clear room to room. And it was tension. You seen bloodstained floors. You seen bodies. Like vampires did stuff in there. Like it was crazy. Then I ended up encountering some vampires, and it brought the tension up. So the thing about it is it made me more, not that it was a scary game, but the tension, the atmosphere really, I didn't think I was going to get that from Redfall. I thought I was going to be, just going around.
Straight action.
Yeah. That inside
what's
houses
funny?
Got me.
What you're describing is literally the foundation of arcade games. They all have that.
Okay.
Just random windows opening. Because the reason they started implying that is because, you'd have spells like blink, you can stop time, and you would use these blink spells to maneuver around these maps to get to higher areas. So, and the only way to really truly do that is if they wanted to have that many ways to do a certain thing, to give access to certain areas that you only can get to with blink or another type of spell.
Yeah, so blink cog is like a nightcrawler power.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say, Saul? Sorry.
No, that's it. I just wanted to, because I don't know if you knew what blink was.
No, I'm glad you explained it. I'm glad.
All right, so what I want to go over next is obviously the main antagonist, the main creature of this game is vampires. And I think we can all agree vampires in terms of mythology, it's one of the loves. And I think people love this form of a creature. They love every aspect about it. And what I was curious is how they're going to portray a vampire, because multiple medias do it differently. And what I want to know from you guys off of, playing a little bit of the game is, how did you feel like they did vampires? We'll start with Saul.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this game is that, when you look at the art style and you look at the video and stuff you've seen of the vampires, they look kind of like classic vampires, right? The fangs and very angular features, even pointy ears. Some of them have like their collars popped up, like what you would think of a Dracula or whatever. But the funny thing is that story-wise, these are not vampires of legend. This is not Dracula. These are vampires that were created by science, some sort of scientific experiment, mixed with occult stuff, probably, that went awry. and all of a sudden these vampires were born, and they have this entire hierarchy and all this stuff. So in every sense of the word, they're vampires, except from what you traditionally expect them to have been created from, right? So that's super interesting because, again, as a story beat, I'm interested to see what the heck, why did this, person who wanted to do this, why did they even want to do this? Did they even know that vampires were going to come of this, or was this just some big accident that went awry and this is the end result of it? But the fact that it's not vampires, Vlad Tepes and Bela Lugosi, it's none of that. They scientifically created vampires, so it's super interesting, and I'm excited to see how the story plays out in that regard.
Yeah, well, how you feel, Carl? Because I know you come from I would say my era, my generation was more about the werewolves. I feel like you guys probably had more of the vampire scene. Dusk Till Dawn, stuff like that. I ain't ever seen those movies. I'm gonna be real with you guys. But how do you feel they handle vampires?
I thought it was cool. I think for me, it was more the allure of how they fight, and because when I encountered the cultists, truth be told, the AI wasn't, I felt, the strongest there. Like, yeah, they would spot me. Yeah, they may see me. But to me, they only became a threat when it was more of them, and then one of them rang an alarm, and then it was like, oh man, it's hard. This is hard to deal with. But individually, it's like, get you out of here. Now,
and the funny thing is, that's arcade games too.
Nice. Well, it's hitting the boat. It's hitting the check box for me, if this is how they always do. But the thing for me with the vampires was just the way they attack. Because, some, you see them in a chilling side, some are awake. And like, when you see them, and when they ready to engage, they let you know you're going to hear it. And then they are on you. And I love the teleport, zip, zip, zip. Like, so you're shooting, they're out the way. It's almost like these quick teleports to close the distance and get you. And the last thing, for me, which really solidified more of the gunplay, was the fact that, when you're shooting vampires and stuff, like, you can't kill them. They go into a down state. And then when they're in that down state, that's when you got to get the jigger, you get your knife on it or the bayonet, and you gotta stab them with the stake, and then they turn to dust. That part was so visceral. It felt so good. So the engagement with the vampires is what excited me. As I didn't expect that. I was just expecting, shoot them up, pow pow, whatever. But yeah. Nah, it was on. It was on when they was there, and I loved that aspect. There was one time I got caught out of pocket. I was in the house, and I thought it was just one of them, and they was kind of in a sleep position, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna get him. And then there was another one. I was like, oh, it was on. I was fumbling. Get out of there.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, okay, so yeah.
The same thing happened to me. It was in the little bit that I got to play after we had our interview.
Yes.
Yeah, we have an interview going live as well.
Yes. More content from the Lords.
More content from the Lords. And I went into a museum. It was a museum, and I went to the second floor of a museum, and the museum was beautiful. Like, everything encased in glass. You can see the reflections coming off of it. It was very well preserved, but you could tell there was, and like you said, Cog, I walked in and you hear the vampires whispering, and the cultists talking. So there's drama in the building, but you can't see it until I go up to the second floor, and I tripped something, some kind of trap or alarm that set everybody going crazy, right? And the awesome thing about it, when the vampires come out, the cultists come out first. Those are the pawns. They throw them out. And so you deal with them, and then the vampires, they're slick though, because they're powerful, but they're smart too. They were like, all right, I think once the cultists sort of take the aggro, right, we're gonna jump in. And that combat scenario was very fun, because when you're sort of dipping and dodging between like the glass cases, and the glasses break in and stuff like that. I was like, wow. It was the sense of time and place coupled with like, okay, how do these vampires fit into this environment in a way that makes sense, that makes it believable that they've taken over this town? They're just not kind of proxies is standing in place. It's very cool, because everywhere that you go in this world, you can tell the devastation that the vampires have brought on it. It's blood, it's all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's the vampire representation here, although different, is very, very cool.
Okay, so the biggest question I think we can all say when it comes to Redfall throughout their whole marketing is whether or not this is built on the foundation of a single player game or co-op experience game. I feel like they really marketed a lot with that co-op at the beginning, and then they kind of like brought that back a little bit to show, this isn't just a multiplayer game. They had famous things where they didn't like people comparing it to something like
Left
Left
4
4
Dead,
Dead.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you guys is, playing this as just a single player game, do you feel like this could be played as either? Because obviously we haven't played the co-op experience, but I think we can generally give an idea of how that's going to go. We all have different abilities, but what I want from you guys, since you played a decent portion, which an hour and a half, is that really a decent portion or not? But you played that. I want to know if you feel like with that single player, if this game is going to be good on both dynamics. We'll start with Carl.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure because it's in fairness, they put us in a mid-level farther in the game. We weren't at the beginning, right? So to me, the first thing I do is I look at my powers. I went straight to start menu. Okay, what abilities do I have with the character? And then there's like a mini skill tree, right? So I'm like, okay, there's certain things I can level up, things like nature. Then the second thing I looked at was, okay, what weapons I have? And like the traditional Destiny, it was like a 3-weapon cycle with the Y button kind of format. And then I also looked at, okay, these colored guns, whether they be orange, gold, kind of like almost like an exotic kind of in my mind. There's the legendaries, so different levels of guns, gunpowder, things of that nature. Walking around the game, I was playing it with my looter sensibilities, killing things, looking up, going into houses, searching, bodies, searching, backpacks, and trying to get resources. So there's a part of me that's like, I had some weapons that were super powerful. They were like, I had some, single shot stake shooter that could kill a vampire in one shot. Clearly, I'm not supposed to have this. And the devs, they made it clear, like, we're going to give you a bunch of things. So there's a part of me that if I started this from the beginning, less skill tree, less weapons, does it feel more grounded? Because I have to admit, Attic, like, I did feel OP sometimes. Like, I was just bodying dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it less like, again, I got completely jumped. I didn't feel that aspect. So I think that's the thing. I think I'm gonna defer to Saul because obviously you guys play, the arcade games and what they're known for, these enriched single players. But as the cooperative guy, you know what I'm saying? I felt it was solid. I felt it was competent. I felt I liked, what I played. I felt it was immersive enough for me in an open world. But again, I'm not coming from the mindset of an arcade guy that knows.
Well, that's the reason I'm talking. Yeah. We'll get to Solve in a second because Solve, we're biased. We can't give realistic answers on this. The reason I want to really, push back a little bit on that, Carl, is I feel like Redfall has some of the sprinkles of Destiny. You got an ability move, kind of a class move, and then you got your super.
Yes.
Take that experience that you did, and there's 3 other people doing it with you. Do you think that would be an enjoyable experience in general?
Oh, yes. I can tell, like, this game is going to be fun with abilities because you can see, how you can. We didn't even really talk about the other characters, but I have Remy, who's like this combat engineer. She's got this little robot, and
the robot.
Yeah, they was explaining how like that robot can distract enemies, can also put like a healing thing. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, she's the warlock. You know what I'm saying? She got a little buddy, and then she got things that she could heal. Then it was like was it the sniper? I think
the sniper was Jacob. Yeah,
right.
Jacob.
I believe Maddie took him in the demo.
Yeah, that's who Maddie took. Yeah,
he's got this cloak thing that can make invisible. He's got this eye thing going on, and then the funny one was what Divino.
And he's got the eagle too,
the
like
eagle.
the right that can sort of pinpoint people's location.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a super when I was editing the interview, and he's got like kind of like a what's that dude from DC? Deadshot or the dude with the gun?
Yeah.
The dude that Will Smith played. Deadshot. Where he'll like bring up his sniper and then he'll just start shooting everyone's head because it's his super.
Yeah. Actually, it was a raven, not an eagle. And then the last one was the influencer, Devinder,
the YouTuber.
The YouTuber. Yeah, he's the was it a cryptoologist?
Yeah,
and he's the dude that's always believed in the legends and vampires and stuff like that. And he's like, he's stuck in Redfall, but he's like he feels like he's been justified in believing all of this stuff, and he's kind of happy to be there in a weird way. Like I'm gonna show them, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, he had the teleportation joint, and he had the one of his supers was like this UV light that could really like stop. So basically, to your question, yes, this game, I feel like if you're playing with 4. Each has those unique abilities that others will take advantage. I know people are going to take advantage of Layla. Yo, let me put your lift down here, your elevator thing, so I can get on top of the building, so I can get for verticality and try to take things out, and all the other powers and support powers and stuff as well.
I can see combo abilities like the chick you guys played. I think you said her name's Layla. Combining with the sniper and her using her thing to shoot him up into a position where he could see more people to get his super off. So I can see it working out. One thing I do want to talk about is I think we can all agree here, especially me and Carl coming from Destiny background. The way guns feels is extremely important in games. And I think a lot of people either hit and miss, some people don't care. And I feel like some people kind of like go towards other areas of the game and they don't really take that part as serious. And I think people some devs don't realize the importance of how a gun feels, how it sounds, and just overall gun gameplay in general. So what I want to ask you guys is off of, using the weapons in Redfall, how did it feel? We'll start with Saul.
Yeah, I thought it felt really good. I mean, I think with Deathloop, they kind of leaned more into the gunplay, right? More than they usually would in an arcane game. And I think this goes even further into that. I think the guns from the very beginning, they felt like super unique. A lot of them have, kind of additions you can add to them, like, like shoot out multiple stakes and stuff and sort of upgrades like that make them feel really cool. But in terms of how they feel, like, yeah, I thought they felt really good. I got, kickback when I was shooting a submachine gun. I got kickback when I was shooting shotgun. The pistols felt good. So the guns really felt like it was an evolution and an improvement from what we've seen from them before, because I really do think it's a bigger part of this game than I would argue any other game up until now, even Deathloop. So yeah, I think they did a really good job with that. And I think when I look at some of my sort of criticisms and worries about the lack of the lack of overall sort of powers that you would see in arcane games, especially from just character to character, since they each only have 3, I think it's an interesting balance when you look at kind of the sort of upgrade path for guns and stuff like that, and how the guns sort of improve over time, and over just being more powerful, being able to take more ammo, stuff like that, but just cool sort of additions, like I said, like the stake shooter and stuff like that can also add to that sort of arcane feel of being able to sort of to manipulate the battlefield and the world with your powers. And now with the guns in conjunction, it feels like they tried something new with that. But I definitely feel that the gunplay is something that was integral to building this game, and you can tell off the bat that they worked on that.
All right, Carl, coming from a Destiny background such as myself,
yes,
I think we can agree Destiny probably has some of the best, if not the best, gameplay in the industry.
Yes. And
so with that being said, how did you feel playing Redfall and shooting its weapons in the game?
Yeah, it felt good. It felt good. Now, obviously, like you said, we got to preface it. I'm used to the creme de la creme, Bungie, shout out to 343 even, what I'm saying? Like that just that precise moment to moment gunplay, that the feel. I'm never going to say it's that level, but I was pleasantly surprised to say it felt good. And it felt competent. It felt like, yes, this is enjoyable. It feels good. The weapons feel distinct. If I had to nitpick a little bit, again, I don't know if they don't have it, but what I would like to see is if there's any melee up close kind of weapons, because there were times when I, like that situation, I bit off more than I could chew inside the house, and the vampires on me, and I would be interested if they had that, because I think melee would be fun in that game if they did, what I'm saying? But as far as gunplay, yes, yeah. I again, the weapons felt distinct. They felt good. They shot well. I didn't feel like, this doesn't have. I think one of my fears coming into was impact. Right, I wanted to see how because I remember some of the trailers didn't really win me over. I'm talking about the early first time you seen Redfall announced type trailers. like it didn't really feel like, I guess this gameplay gonna be, but I felt really solid when I actually played it. And I was like, nah, this is serviceable. And I'm just curious to see what more in the arsenal they have, how more creative they go. And yeah, again, if Arcade, if y'all have melee weapons, please let me know, because I would be. I like to get the more the jigging and the cutting and and the stomping. I like that. If you give me, if they take a little bit of Gears energy, Coalition energy, when it comes to like Chainsaw and really go with it, that would really take it to the next level for me.
Imagine Layla like having a melee attack where she like kind of like it would charge, where she grabs them with her telekinesis and like just breaks them.
Yeah, like
yeah, that's what I want to see them get super OP like that.
Yes, I want more visceral. You know what I'm saying?
Especially because when you think about your human beings fighting vampires, but you have the audacity to roll up on them and slap them or punch them or kick them. Like that's what I want to see, right? I want to see that. Yeah.
Or it'd be cool if like you can break, like you there's an ability where like you grab things around you and make it to like stakes and just throw it at them.
Just chuck them at them. Yeah, like I mean, yeah, my mind started racing when I saw like kind of like what you could hopefully do with this stuff, right? With this game. Yeah.
All right, so let's call. We gotta talk, man. Being the other person that plays Destiny, we know about builds. We know when it comes to build stuff, how important it is to a lot of different games. Now, obviously, we can't compare this to Destiny because this is a different type of style of game. But going in here and seeing some of the types of, exotics, so I don't know what they call them in here, the different colored guns. I don't know if that has different forms of armor with different stats. Break the build format and, the rarities and stuff down that's in Redfall.
Yeah, the first thing you'll notice is the weapon, the weapon distinctions, the different archetypes of guns, shotguns. I believe there was some like semi-automatic weapons I was using. Obviously, I told you about the more powerful weapons, which kind of like grenade launcher style that shoots stakes. There was a UVB ring, which I didn't know how to use correctly. We spoke to Matty afterwards. He actually figured out how to utilize the UV beam correctly and to get through those red mist areas that had those blood heart kind of things that were really enabling and damaging you when you go through. So I think the weapons itself fine. As far as builds though, I'm not certain there, because it felt, this is where I will defer to Solve and the Arcade Hardcore, is that felt simplistic to me, because they were like, yeah, just skill trees, but they were like basic. It wasn't like, it's funny because I just finished playing Diablo and now I'm like seeing all these extensive with a skill tree. So I'm like, oh yeah, I get where they going now. You know what I'm saying? So this felt, I'm still one of Solve's good points, which it felt like they may have made a conscious decision. If they were extensive in the past to the games like that you like, and it's this massive skill tree, they may have made a design decision to say, okay, we're going to limit a couple of these per character and split them among and make it from the cooperative standpoint, as opposed to each individual kind of like Layla having this all expansive things. Like I felt like that part they didn't go super hard with, because as a person who likes builds, who likes the minutia of messing with little perks and things like that, I didn't see that aspect, and I'm hoping there's more to it. But from what we played at that point, I would say, yeah, the skill tree felt a little simplistic, and I'm just curious as far as like, I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember seeing any kind of armor stuff. I remember seeing like weapon stuff.
I don't remember. Yeah, definitely weapon stuff, no armor stuff.
Yeah, I just see like weapon stuff and skill tree stuff. So that's where I lean. I see where Saul was coming from with the hero shooter kind of energy, as opposed to like this deep RPG-esque, skill tree-esque. Even the Outriders, I would say, had a way more deeper skill tree standpoint.
I think that because this is preset characters with abilities, there's only so much you can do in the building characters. Now, they could have made it more like Borderlands and give a little bit more options from what you guys are saying. Right. But I do feel like this particular game, because there's 4 people and you're building off of their characters, which, we don't know everything about the game yet. So that there could be some in-game content kind of stuff where you unlock, newer abilities. I don't know. That's complete speculation. But, Saul, from what you played of it, you coming from a arcane background too, I'm curious to hear your opinion on, whether or not you could play these unique character differently, or do you think they kind of like want you to play in one line, one way?
Well, I think my biggest criticism of what I played would be that, right? As someone who comes from playing, a lot of arcane games, when you look at a character like a Corvo or an Emily or even like a Morgan in Prey and of course Colt and Deathloop, but I don't forget Colt. The skill trees are usually 6 or 7 deep, right? In terms of their powers, and then those skills evolve over time to make them even more powerful, even more versatile. So by separating amongst 4 characters, each of them getting 3 different skills, it kind of feels like when you put them all together, you get kind of one Corvo or one Emily or one Colt. So in that regard, that's where my criticism comes from, that it feels limiting in that regard, that the game is definitely competent and playable as a single player game. But if you're more of the arcane type player and you want to focus on your powers instead of the gunplay as much, it's going to be limiting, because you're going to have those 3 skills. Those three skills have a tree that you could improve upon and expand upon throughout the course of the game. But just they let us kind of look at the skill tree. It's not like a blocked off skill tree. You can't see where the evolution is going. So when you look at like the final evolution of the skill tree, right? They don't really evolve into super interesting versions of themselves. Like with Emily, the telekinetic sort of elevator that she has, the evolution is that you get like another one of those, right? Mm-hmm. And it just shoots you up higher and stuff like that. The same with the sort of the umbrella shield, whereas now you can absorb more damage and throw it back out. So it is that sort of, it's a natural evolution of those powers. But when you think about it in terms of how I like to play in these worlds, it's limiting, because not every single character has a sort of like a motion power. Not every character has a stealth power, right? So it's going to be a mix and match sort of thing. So when you play from character to character, it's going to be limiting. Where I think you're going to get the ideal arcane experience is if you do play it in 4-player co-op, with every single player playing as one of the different characters, utilizing all the different powers, and then seeing how that comes together in a 4-player PvE sort of thing, where you can learn how to synchronize powers. And like you said before, like Layla throwing down the sort of elevator for the sniper to jump up and get higher because he naturally can't get higher and stuff like that. So using those powers in conjunction to have some really cool moments. Yes. But from individual characters, so far, at least with Layla, right? I don't know how the other ones play or evolve. At least with Layla, it just seems like no matter how much you evolve those abilities, you're still going to be limited to a certain type of gameplay type, right? So there goes where the guns are integral now to this game, right? So that's my criticism of it. But it just makes me worry about the longevity of the legs that the game has as a single player thing. More than anything, it makes me excited for what the multiplayer can be. Because when you get players, these players, they get in there, they're pros, and they really want to get everything out of the gameplay. Mm-hmm. You're going to see some amazing scenarios with people using all these characters and doing some cool stuff. I always think about when I played Dishonored and started watching the Corvo videos on YouTube and Blink videos, and him, these players just jumping from person to person, murdering them, and it's this amazing sort of symphony of death. That's kind of like what I want to see from this game, and I think it has that ability in multiplayer. I'm not as confident in the single player aspect though.
Mm-hmm. And just to double down one quickly to what Saul was saying too, is that my concern with the single player is a little different in the sense that I definitely hear what you're saying. It's all valid points, but I wanted to note that I was surprised that, like, when I try to get, as me and Softcore, our Merc and Murder on, which we play single player, we in the cut, and I had to drop on a couple of cultists. So Attic, you go behind. I was waiting for to press the right analog in the, you know what I'm saying, to jig them, and I didn't see that. So I was like, oh, okay, they really leaning into
the gunplay.
It's a gunplay, right? And that was the thing that surprised me. Just like the stealth comment. You can do stealthy things, but I wanted to see if they were going to really lean into it. I felt that part surprised me, not being in the single player, but that was my point.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was super disappointing for me. And I know Maddie mentioned it as well. It is that thing of these, when you think about the immersive sim, it's the RPG elements, it's the stealth elements, it's the action elements all coming together as one and allowing you to sort of play it any which way you want, right? You can play it straight in any one of those three types of elements or whatever the case may be, or you can mix and match them, and all of that is valid. When we saw that, and the same thing happened to me. I got the drop on two cultists. I was above them. I dropped them behind them quietly. They had no idea I was there. I creeped behind them and nothing. I got up on them. I didn't get any prompt or anything like that. And they just turned around and I wound up having to shoot them in the face. So that was disappointing because I'm like, man, so what are you telling me here about this game?
Yeah. No, it was different. And one last point, Attic, I know I'm going long because Soft got me thinking. But the other thing is where the switch flipped for me on what I think they were trying to do or what they're showing me is that when it became the shooter, it was like, okay, if I don't eliminate all of them, then one can ring an alarm, bring others, and then it becomes problematic for me. So I think it was just, I don't know if it was design choice or wherever that's where they go, but it didn't lead into that stealth part that he was saying.
Yeah. Actually, we're about to talk about the stealth. Okay. I feel like Arcane's been very good throughout the years with Dishonored. I didn't play a whole lot of Prey. I'm assuming there were stealth mechanics in there to a degree. And Deathloop, where you could play the game going in there, guns blazing, throwing spells around. I remember there was spells that you could do where you could slow time down, pull someone in front of their own bullets. Yeah, there was a lot of things you can do in their previous games. How would you feel they're doing in the stealth department? We'll start with Saul first because he's played the previous stuff.
So, like we were saying, like it feels like the stealth mechanics that the game does have are more sort of for you literally to be able to get around certain situations stealthily and not use it offensively as well. Like when Cog talks about merc and murder, that for us, that is the ability to use stealth to get the drop on your opponents, but kill them anyway.
Yes.
It's not about doing the ghost run. It's about getting the drop on them and murdering them from behind. That's
exactly.
So that's where I sort of felt that this fell short, because it does not have that in the same way, at least from what we saw. Again, that was very telling that we were able to get the drop on these NPCs, and then there'd be no sort of button prompt or anything for you to kill them stealthily. So I know there is one, which is the character that has the stealth cloaking. I forgot who it is. I believe
that was Jacob the
It's sniper. Jacob the sniper. Yeah. So again, you can walk through the front door of a place that's infested with vampires, turn your stealth cloak on, and you can get around them, right? And then go try to do whatever objective you have to do in that place and try to get out and play stealthily that way. But that is a very defensive sort of ghost run type of way to play. And it doesn't feel like it's giving me a lot of offensive options in terms of the stealth. Like you can go into stealth and kill a bunch of cultists quietly, like just shoot them in the face and be standing in front of them and they can't see you. It's that sort of stuff. But the idea of being able to get the drop on them and kill them with specific animations that they created for that sort of stuff, the stuff that I expect from like a Splinter Cell or again other Arcane games, it was kind of disappointing not to see that. And I don't know if maybe some other character does have that, and maybe a Layla or Jacob doesn't have that. With us with Layla, we didn't see that. So that was disappointing. But again, Maddie was playing as Jacob, and he didn't get that either. Yeah.
Okay, so Carl, I'm sure you've played a lot of stealth mechanic orientated games in the past. When it comes to their type of games, normally they go that you sneak up behind someone, get rid of them. They actually have abilities where you can get rid of them, or if I remember correctly, in Dishonored you could actually pick them up and take them somewhere and just drop them so no one sees them.
You can take them up to the top of a building. You can take
Deathloop, they just disappear the moment they just disappear. So how did you feel the options that Arcane gave you in Redfall to have more of a stealth approach on certain encounters?
Yeah, that was one of my few criticisms. That I was just like, I didn't feel a lead into that. That this was definitely more of the open world shooter. You know what I mean? And this is hero shooter and abilities, things of that nature. But I didn't feel like, unless I guess it's character specific, or we just didn't see certain mechanics that wasn't present to us in the demo. I didn't feel that. and that's that's going to be received differently. You know what I mean, by people who are looking for that romp. That may not bother them, but for the stealth gang, we was like, oh man, maybe you missed a little opportunity there to throw a little something in there. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got. So I've said it best already.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up with one last question. It's going to be to solve. You have played a lot of these arcade games. There's a lot of arcade fans that are very nervous that they're not seeing some of the elements that they love in their previous titles in this. What is your message to them about whether or not they should try Redfall off of what they've seen being arcade fans yourself?
Well, I think they should absolutely try Redfall no matter what, because no matter how I end up feeling about the game, you have to commend them for trying to sort of stick to their DNA while expanding upon it in some ways, right? It's, a lot of their DNA is here, whether it be from the storytelling, the world building, to the powers and those types of mechanics. They're just leaning more into the gunplay, but they're not leaning into it in a cheap way. It's obvious that they've worked hard on that, and they've worked hard on creating that synergy between the gun mechanics and the classic arcane like powers and stuff like that. So I would say, no matter what, this is an exciting step for them. Whether they hit it out of the park and they really they really nail the landing is left to be seen. But I appreciate them continuing to try to evolve their formula. From what I saw, it really is an issue of, I feel that I'm going to be limited as a single player gamer with the limited amount of powers each character has. Just from what I've seen. I could be wrong, and I hope that I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But from what I've seen, it just feels like I'm going to play this game 4 times, right? With a different character to get the sense of what their powers give me in terms of variety out in the open world and in combat. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to hope that is enough for me to feel fulfilled as having played an arcane game, right? As opposed to a shooter. Where I do think the game, I'm excited for people to get their hands on the game and play, is the multiplayer stuff. Mm-hmm. And make no mistake about it. It is a competent single player game, and I appreciate them for sticking to that. At the same time, I do feel the game was built for multiplayer, and to get the true arcane experience out of this game, I think the ideal way to play would be to be played, 4 human players, mm-hmm. each player, playing one of the different characters, using all 12 of those abilities in synergy to create something special when you're out there in the open world fighting vampires and stuff and taking on combat scenarios. I think that's where you're really going to see the arcaniness mm-hmm. of the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for that, because I don't know that I've ever seen them attempt something like that. That's a big deal, to try to get that sort of synergy in a PvE game where they're still trying to tell you a story. We've seen that sort of synergy when you see Overwatch videos and how they use all the powers together and stuff like that. And that's awesome. But this is a different beast, and it's never really been done before. So I'm excited to see if they nail that landing and players really gravitate to that type of gameplay. Because I would be disappointed if people just be like, oh, I don't really care about the powers, let's just shoot. And I'm sure they built it so that it would be a fun experience in that way as well. But I think for them, as well as for me as an Arcane fan, the ideal would be that people use the guns and the powers and synchronicity in a way that makes it feel super special. Like I want to see those crazy videos on YouTube with people going crazy with the power. So that's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm a little nervous about, but we'll see. But overall, play the game, because this, no matter what, they're trying something different. I think there are super special elements to it.
Yeah, I think pretty much what you're saying is like, look, it's an arcade game. It's just because of the way they went with this direction in Redfall. They're trying new things. They had to do things differently than they normally would do, because this way doesn't make sense to have those old mechanics to the law in this game, because then this game would suffer. Because when you try something different, especially a 4-player campaign like they're doing with a co-op experience, can't do the same laws that you would do in a single player experience, because then the co-op's not going to feel like a co-op.
It's not going to feel like a co-op, and we got to remember too, open world.
Yes,
Arcane games aren't open world for the most part. They they give you they can be wide spaces, right? But all of those spaces are still created and crafted, like we were talking before, to give you the options. Oh, this window's open. Oh, this door down here is open. There's ledges everywhere. I can blink here, blink there, blink there. It's a sandbox it's a small sandbox that's created specifically for you to be able to manipulate it with the powers you have at hand. It's a different beast when you say, okay, I'm going to give you those powers, but I'm going to give you an open world to mess with. Is that world malleable enough and versatile enough to be able to, for that type of gameplay to work, right? So this is a different undertaking, and that has to be respected. You have to respect that.
All right, so I think that's pretty much all the questions that I got for you guys. First off, we did interview. I'll let Cog, briefly talk about the interview that we did. I'm gonna put the interview he's about to talk about in the description below, in case you guys want to go over there and check that out. And I'll do vice versa from them over here.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the legendary Harvey Smith, who we had the pleasure of interviewing, and he dropped so many gems on the game. And that will be up. You'll check that up. It's so much stuff. I do want to add one thing also in reference to my overall impressions with it. At the end was just that, for me, coming from, again, not the arcane, history, but like as a fan of cooperative shooters, what really intrigues me about this is, one, it felt fun. Two, narratively, I was interested as to see what happened here in Redfall, what is going on. We didn't really talk about the vampire gods mechanic and how like things could happen in this world. They affect their looking at what's going on, and the more you do, they could send down some type of Bruticus type figure or something to come chase you.
The Rook.
Maddie got a chance to experience the Rook.
I saw him. He looks like the Nemesis off Resident Evil 3.
Get a lot of Nemesis energy, a lot of things, the safe houses, clearing stuff out, other boss fights and stuff. There's a lot we didn't see yet. So I want to be clear with that. Second, the other thing is that, from me as the cooperative guy, what intrigues me about Redfall's uniqueness is that, like Saul alluded to, which is the open world aspect. I'm used to cooperative playing in stages. Okay, we did stage 1. Stop. Go to stage 2. No, like this is open world. This is, and again, I'm not trying to throw any shade on Dead Games. I love y'all, but like this is what I was hoping State of Decay 2 did, which was, instead of us being Attic, you go in there and I got to stay out front with the Jeep while you go in there, clear out the blood heart, and I can't go do my own thing. Like this is all for the Lords. King can go down the block. I could go to another part of Brooklyn. Everybody could do their own thing. No tether, which is an IOP exclusive. Harvey said that on our joint. So go check out. His words were he fought for that. He fought for that. The developers told him that is a very big undertaking. I don't know. He's like, well, we're going to have to figure this out. And for me, that's exciting because I want to see how that works. Now, obviously, there's going to be scaling, right? One person, we had that sinister dude Addict, that's going to try to do too much. He could get bodied because of the scaling of what he's going to deal with. And he did say, in fairness, that if Sinister, so as example, our fictional person who don't listen and know what to do with the group saying, and if that person go off,
fictional person,
fictional Sinister, I love you, brother, but like that goes off and does his own thing. And if he does successful, then he said, like, say if there's a major story beat, then there will be a chance where they kind of will bring us back together at a safe house at that point. But for the most part, it sounds open world, and that part really excites me. I don't know why. It just really excites. I guess maybe Far Cry, maybe other games do that.
Never been done before. No, never been
done. And I think they're not getting enough credit there. So maybe the sacrifices from the skill tree and the arcane hardcore sensibilities were made to try this new thing. And I'm willing to give them a chance to see if they can execute, land this play, because that part is pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, so it's like I said, first off, I want to thank again Bethesda, for, giving us the opportunity to try this game. Maybe we'll get some Let's Plays of the Lord, since there's ironically 4 spots.
It's a Lord's game. Yeah, this is definitely a community day game.
Yes.
So like I said, anyone that's watching this, in the description below, there'll be a link to the interview we did. I hope you guys enjoy all the content we're giving on Redfall. And until next time, we will be at PAX this coming up week, but I hope you guys have a good day, and the Lords are out. Peace.
Let's be clear. It's the only interview with Harvey Smith that was done for this. The
IOP.
only one.
Exclusive.
Exclusive.
I'm
World
gonna put that as the
premiere.
title.
No doubt, my man Saul. It was good to do it again, bro. Much love for the support. We got more content coming for you. And again, thanks for the good friends at Bethesda and Arcane Austin for giving us the opportunity to cover it.